Thank you again, Lady K. And just before I start speaking, I would like to welcome. I need to do that because I think respect begets respect. We have on today's webinar Dr. Mrs. Omolara Akonji, a retired Director Trade and Exchange of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who is also currently a member of the Board of Trustees of the Network of Practicing Non-Oil Exporters of Nigeria, MPNN. I needed to do this because I think that Dr. Akonji has shown an unparalleled commitment to ensuring the development of non-oil exports from Nigeria. And so we want to welcome you, Ma. Thank you for joining us today. I think she's muted. Okay, so thank you very much. The topic for discussion today is actually export for survival, market access imperatives. You would notice that over the past 3-4 editions, especially since the Executive Director, CEO of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council came to talk to us, we have been harping on export for survival. Of course, there is no better time than now to continue to drum that music that I am sure there's a fellow soldier on this webinar that I'm seeing here, with whom we have been on this journey for more than 30 years. Dr. John Isemede is here, and I welcome you. And I believe that you will understand that export for survival that we have been clamoring for over 30 years, if it has now come to occupy center position, the least we can do is to complement the effort of anybody who has now bought the hymn book from which we have been singing. So I will try to kickstart. That's what I believe my role is as the lead speaker here today, to talk to the topic of today. And to do that, I want to do it in about 3 segments, maybe 3.5. The first segment is simply why Nigeria must export to survive. I will try as much as possible not to belabor this particular topic, because it is something, if we decide to open up, we can talk for the next 2 days. So why Nigeria must export to survive? Number one, the Naira is getting weaker and weaker. And I hate to imagine, talking from experience, in 1990, I was part of a Nigerian delegation of about 40 that went on solo exhibition in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. I was actually the pavilion coordinator, and it was my responsibility to pay the local staff. And whenever I took about $1,000 to go and exchange, I needed, I'm talking about in Freetown, I needed, those iron boxes that pilgrims used to take to Mecca. And I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. I needed about 2 or 3 of those to take the equivalent in leons to the pavilion in order to pay the workers their daily rate. I am afraid that if we are not exporting to survive, we might very, very soon be approaching that level. Again, from a recent experience, about 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, members of the Talking Trade WhatsApp group will know that I remember that I posted our presence in Lome, Togo, with the technical leadership of Nigeria Export Promotion Council, where they had gone to open or to commission the Nexport Trade House in Lome. And it reminded me of when I was a student. I played handball for Great Ife, the University of Ife. And when we got to international level, our camp allowance was 4 Naira per day. So when I went for the West Africa University Games competition in Yamoussoukro, Cote d'Ivoire, we were paid 4 naira per day for 16 days. And to help us, they helped us to change the money into CFA franc, which is the currency of the Francophone West Africa. Our 64 naira gave each of us 64,000 CFA. We spent and spent and could not exhaust. But when I went to Lome this time around, my 1,000 naira, I mean, for me to get 1,000 CFA, I needed to put down 1,000 naira. It means that from 1 naira to 1,000 CFA, we now have 1 naira to 1 CFA. And it is still getting worse by the day. Now, the second point is that Nigeria continues to remain a monoproduct economy, where the crude oil has remained the major contributor, providing over 80% of GDP. But what's happening to crude oil today? The price is rising in the international market, but Nigeria is not meeting its OPEC allotted quota. So we are unable to take advantage or to benefit from the world market spiral in oil prices. As of today, Nigeria is estimated to produce less than or maximum of 1.2 million barrels per day, while OPEC expects us to sell about 2 to 2.5 million barrels of oil per day. So if you do 1 million times 0, it will be 0. And as long as we are not able to explore and exploit to the level that we are supposed to sell to the international market, we are not making the earnings that we are supposed to be making. The result of this, of course, is what we are seeing. Today, the US dollar is 610 or 612 to 1 naira. About 2 months ago, you could still get it at about 470. Again, recently, we have discovered, or we have read, that the foreign reserve has continued to deplete. In actual fact, just last week, the excess crude account was reported to now have less than $350 million in it. That means that over the short term, Nigeria may not have enough money to pay for whatever it is that it is importing. Also, we talk about the growing demand for the US dollar because of several other socio-economic factors, such as the deterioration in our education system. There is now a high demand for foreign currency to pay school fees for the droves of Nigerian students that are needing to go abroad if they want to attain their educational aspirations while they are still young. And of course, if you go to any car mart anywhere in Nigeria today, whether in Lagos or Abuja, you are likely to see vehicles that are even not yet plying the roads in North America or Europe. Our taste for the exotic continues. Nigeria continues to be the largest market for South African red wine or for French champagne, even though we are supposed to be the poverty capital of the world. These are the reasons why it is imperative that Nigeria understand what the Nigeria Export Promotion Council is saying when they evolve their mantra, export for survival. If this economy must be reversed, non-oil export is the only solution. The second segment of my speech here has again to do with the fact that, assuming we now understand that we must export to survive. Okay, so talking about export promotion to the detriment of export development is actually what will lead us into the topic of today. Under the Obasanjo administration, a presidential team was raised that went around the whole of Africa promoting Nigeria as the world's biggest producer of cassava. And therefore, everybody even went to produce even more cassava, to the extent of it came to a time, and this I'm talking from personal experience, when yours truly was actually contacted by no other than the deputy governor of Bayelsa State at that time, who eventually became Nigeria's #1, to help them to look for people who will come and buy cassava right inside the soil, because Bayelsa had spent so much money in producing, and when the time for harvest came, the market was not there. The reason for that simply was because we had advocated, we had advertised so much the profit that could be made from cassava without providing a market access. Now we have a small and medium scale enterprises development agency of Nigeria. In my rough estimate, over the past 10 years, SMIDAN has conducted youth entrepreneurship development program, women entrepreneurship development program, and all manner of entrepreneurship development program, all of which are very rich in content and provided by licensed business development service providers. They will probably have produced a minimum of 1 million trained, certificated micro, small, and medium enterprises who are now knowledgeable and are producing to world standards. But when they produce, what happens to the product? Now they are looking for market. So market access remains one of the most challenging issues to the SME that is developed from in Nigeria. That's the reason for today's talk. Yesterday, or was it day before yesterday, on the Talking Trade and Investment group, on the Tatric WhatsApp group, we had the Commissioner of Commerce, Industry and Cooperatives, Edo State. I think she must be on this call. She should be on this call. And then we were brainstorming on how difficult it has been to actually get products, not only of Edo State, but of Nigeria, to penetrate a market. It's important, it's imperative. Now is the time for SMEDAN actually and NEPC to now inculcate market development into whatever strategy that they are doing. That way, we will not be having the challenge of market access. Again, remember, the topic for today is export for survival, market access imperatives. So what do other countries do? Segment 3, I'm going to talk specifically about 2 countries that are making waves in global trade. Australia. Australia has a scheme called the EMDG, Export Market Development Grant. Don't laugh when I tell you what Export Market Development Grant covers, but this will show you how seriously the people who are making waves in export market, how seriously they take support for their exporters. Now, under the Export Market Development Grant, if I make a call to an Australian company that I have seen their product online and I'm interested in importing this product, I use Nigeria as an example to tell you how far it is from Australia. If I make that call, make my first inquiry, second inquiry, third inquiry, and then we go on to the level of discussing, ultimately in 2 weeks' time, if I place an order for that product, the cost of my call, or if it is the Australian exporter that returns my call, all the telephone calls or email communication, the cost of that is refunded under the Export Market Development Grant. If I now need to go and pay a visit to the factory producing what I am importing, the cost of my air ticket and hotel and upkeep while in Australia is refunded under the. This is Australia's way of supporting, facilitating access to Australia's. Of course, Australia is one of the most active supporters of their exporters to participate in overseas trade fairs and trade events. Let's leave the Australia and the EMDG. EMDG covers maybe including the cost of engaging a consultant or a broker to carry out market research. Okay, on a previous edition of Talking Trade webinar, I had actually given the illustration of my first visit to the Egyptian embassy in Nigeria, told me quite clearly that his job was not to go to Cairo, but to sell Egyptian products in Nigeria. This is why market access becomes an imperative. So I'm just going to, over the next, I think I have only 2 minutes more. I'm now going to talk about what Nigeria must do, what market access means. A lot of this will be government must do this, government must do that, which I don't usually do. And the reason why it is government must do this or government must do that is that the Nigerian exporters have on their own, at least 90% of the time on their own, with their own. If you look at the packaging of poundo yam, I think, and plantain, Bosun will tell us a little bit about that. Elizabeth Nwankwo is here, and how much she had undergone in order to bring they are at today without or with minimal support from government. So I would say that the Nigerian exporter is conscious of a lot of the things that have to do with market access, even though to learn more and invest more. After all, there's no limit to excellence. But having said that, for a country to prosper in international trade, I did say it here, international trade is now an economic warfare. The global market is an economic battlefield, and every exporter is a soldier that needs to be armed by its government. So what are those arms that the Nigerian exporter needs in order to be able to access the market he or she is targeting? So first and foremost, I talk about economic diplomacy, and I'm using the example of Canada. A lot of people talk today about having FDA certification. Not many people talk about having CFIA certification, but the reality is CFIA. CFIA is simply Canadian Food Inspection Agency. It is the regulatory authority in Canada that determines which food or ingestible food or drink is admissible into Canada. And if you go out to cfia.ca, that's the official website of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, you will find African foods that are listed as admissible from Ghana as origin. You will not find one that is listed as admissible from Nigeria. So the Nigerian exporter to Canada is actually doing that on level oh God. It depends on who is the CBSA, the Canadian Border Service Agency agent that is on duty on that day, may or may not allow the container to pass. I have personally had experience where my container passed through CBSA in Montreal, arrived at CPA, Canada Rail in Vaughan, in Toronto, and my truck was there to pick it up. And the person who was on duty said, no, these are not admissible products. They are not listed on CFIA website. I lost about $127,000 Canadian dollars to that transaction. What is the solution to this? Nigerian trade support institutions, Nigeria Export Promotion Council, NAFDAC, between the two of them, all they need is to write a letter to, or let's not put it so in such a petty manner. All they need to do is to engage with Canadian Food Inspection Agency and bring to the awareness of those ones. We have, as of today, in Toronto alone, about 2 million Nigerians. In Canada, maybe we are roughly between 3 and 5 million. These people, they eat gari, they eat plantain, they cook with palm oil. You list all of those and send the characteristics, the content to CFIA. CFIA probably will request for samples. They will do whatever it is that FDA does in the US, and they can now list all of this on the CFIA website. So any border service agent who is seeing a container that contains Indomie, that contains no cubes or Maggi, knows that this is what Nigerians consume. This cannot be left to the competence or financial capacity of the exporter from Nigeria or the Nigerian resident in Canada who is importing. That's what I call economic diplomacy. You must support by interfacing with governments of the target market. I'm just going to mention this a little bit. I know Mr. Otowo will probably talk a little bit more, in more details about it. Recently, the Nigeria Export Promotion Council has been promoting the Export Trading House. And the Export Trading House that is being promoted by NEPC was actually conceived as a one-off grant out of the COVID-19 pandemic when they did, I can't remember what, it was an economic intervention thing, more like the CERB in Canada. So NEPC decided, okay, let's set up export trading houses in a few countries. I know one has opened in Cairo. I know I was present when the one in Lome was opened. I think one is going to open very soon in Kenya. But the concept of the export trading house is actually what the British government, not British government, British business used in colonizing Nigeria economically. Simply put, they came with their businessmen. The businessmen incorporated John Holt Ventures in Nigeria. John Holt Ventures opened warehouses manned by GB Oliphant and MDS. That was just simply it. So every manufacturer from Great Britain, United Kingdom, will ship to that warehouse. Some of them who had the financial muscle will send their salesmen to the warehouse. So you will have desk. Even today, if you go to Suleja, you will see GB Oliphant warehouse. There's a section for CAPL. There's a section for Dunlop tires and stuff like that. So they pay their rent, chokolo. These guys remit the money. So for wheelbarrow exporters, I'm not talking about multinational exporters from Nigeria. For wheelbarrow exporters, those who cannot on their own fill up a container, export trading house is the solution. Be an economic intervention thing. It is a concept that NEPC must explore into more detail, that they can now produce a standard operating manual, that they will now begin to license qualified Nigerians in target markets to operate export trading houses to facilitate the market access for Nigerian MSMEs. EEFP, the Export Expansion Facility Program, must get item. It cannot no longer be dropped, because what I said Australia and Canada do is supposed to come under the Export Development Fund, which, as you all know, is grossly underfunded. Okay. Of course, we cannot.
You have 5 more minutes.
Thank you. or providing the export professional marketers to man the economic desk of Nigerian embassies abroad, since Nigeria has, I don't know, just the same way that we closed our commodities boards locally, we also closed the 6 commercial desks that we had operating. Mr. Otowo, actually, I think he must have manned 2 or 3 of those desks. I remember you were in East Berlin when it was opened, and when it collapsed to Berlin, to Germany, you were the head, and then you came to Brussels. We have closed all of those now, and even the one in Taiwan, I think, is more of a diplomatic desk than an economic desk. There is no way that Nigeria will be able to achieve market access if we don't have people whose business it is to gather economic information, pass this to the NEPC. NEPC uses this this is trade lead, right? Uses this to reach out to Nigerian exporters based on whatever it is that they are getting, which are the sectors of greatest request. They use this to develop training and capacity building programs. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop myself. If not, for the next 3 hours, we'll be talking about this. Again, the topic is export for survival, market access imperatives. And I want to thank you all for listening. I'm also on standby for your comments and your questions. Thank you very much.